which is a whole lot of folks that are, ready for support and um, a lot of folks willing to support. So, yeah, uh, it's a beautiful thing. Hopefully, um, active issues is a big means of getting it off the ground too, right? And we can do those. This is what I was thinking too, right? That a lot of the documents will still be good for what's going on in the background in terms of discussion and dialogue um, uh, about what it can or will be. So, yeah, no, this is exciting stuff. You also mentioned some stuff. I don't know if it's too off the topic of journeys, so I'll leave the floor open. It made me think of some stuff that is off the topic of journeys, I should say. But I'll leave the floor open for any thoughts that folks have, any input, questions of clarity, or what have you. Um, yeah, thank you kindly, House. Welcome, Mark. Good to see you, Mike. We just got into the beginning of what we call journeys, or would be our version of community grants, right? And House just broke down some things for us that are important to think about in terms of starting small and showing some organic function that's in the design of both the clan design that you're very aware of, Mark, but also some of the tooling that House has been working on for some time now. Um, and so we talked about how important it's going to be for us to, um, leverage all of these different things, leverage some of the um, uh, authentic support that circulates in the community, and find a way to um, uh, really articulate how important these uh, serious flows are thought about, right? Thought about seriously, I should say, and uh, you know before implemented, right? And that's a lot of what we're talking about is how important it's going to be to get what we have so far out to more folks than just us, for it to actually encourage that much more participation, understanding of how important it is across the different people in the community, including yourself, right, Mark? So this is kind of the discussion we had, kind of clarifying, that there's still a point of relaying what are well-written grants, right, which we can all support each other to help do, and relaying this to the foundation or folks that are overseeing a grants program. Right? And so, but the idea is that there's less of a review process there, right? Because there's been a distributed power in our own review processes that are so robust that it's much easier to just look at the community support that has already been gathered to judge whether or not this is a viable grant, worth funding, especially when you consider all the different spectrum of knowledge that each grant might have, right? There might be a grant focused on community building or events, or a very technical grant focused on smart contracts or blockchain technology in some other specific way. And not every reviewer in any given you know, committee or review team, right, would have a hard time um, finding the time to study up and then review, study up again, then review, come together, and all of this stuff. And so it can feel a little bit overwhelming as well in terms of a steady flow of things to review if you're just a small team. So if you distribute that power, and you also distribute that power across folks that are already passionate about supporting each other, about actually building out these projects, and you have important points of accountability built in, checks and balances built in, governance built in, right? And you have a fairly robust system design, right, for bottom-up distributed power review processes, which Mark, when it comes to the clan design and matrilineal management, not so much governance, but management. Whenever conflict may arise in that other given system, we can plug folks right into these protocols for consensus and peaceful resolutions. And so this is something that we can rest assured in terms of scalability, which Haas spoke to as well, and focus on actually doing it, showing the benefits of the clan design in facilitating it actually happening, which is always an issue in conventional governments, but also governance in spaces like this. So to be able to build systems that engender the participation, for that to be the next step that we're on in these sessions like this, to getting this one pager, which is in the chat, you can check out. Mark, there's not the spec, but it's something called the one pager right above it. I can make sure to ping you at it so it's easier for you to find. But these are some of the discussion that we had. So it's good to see you. I'm glad we could catch you. But there was something I think speaks to also engendering participation that is not so much journeys related, but in this one connection it is in terms of participation. Some of the outward facing thinking, right? Haas and Hero have been doing. Haas, you've been having some recent thoughts on this. Doc, we thought yourself and Nat might be interested, along with anybody else here, in helping with some of these things. I know myself, Nat, and Doc already had a pretty focused conversation around some, outward-facing education or flows for onboarding of folks, showing folks where everything is a big aspect of this. Haas spoke a little bit to this as it relates to journeys too, right? I think very briefly, but it's a part of our conversations as well recently about journeys is potentially having a visible board of things for folks to do, right? It's not unlike what we wanted to accomplish in that Figma board, right? Where there's a list of things that are already going on, things that need to get done in terms of translations or other things, right? And to have a place for folks to know that, look, if you're looking for a place to contribute and you already have some things in mind, but you're not too sure if it's needed, maybe it's there already and you just need to look, or maybe you have some ideas sparked by some things already going on. And so finding some time, right, from folks that are available for this would be nice to coordinate. And there's something else to look at, but also some discussion around this as it relates to journeys or just in general may be interesting to have. Haas, I know you've had some recent thoughts on, and then Hero as well, right, in the GitHub repo, the SaxGov repo, you had some discussion with Haas around some potential steps to this, right? How important defining community is for this, but also some like iterative steps. Haas, you've been thinking about, what did you call it, rounds of opening it up as 25 at a time or things like this? How are you thinking about it?
25 new advocates a month. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all I have.
All right. No, beautiful. No, this is good to think about, just to throw it out there, see if it sparks anything from people. Hero, I know you may have been thinking along some of the lines as well. I guess all of this relates to journeys in some way, right? But also it relates to coordinating around outward-facing content, outward-facing flows and things like this. So some broader work that falls under the umbrella of. But yeah, I mean, I'll just open up the floor. All right. Nothing sparked. That's okay. But yeah, I don't know if there's any more journey discussion folks want to have. Doc, I'll coordinate with yourself in that. I know it's kind of where we left off. Hero as well, if you're interested. I know already had some folks that I'm thinking already had some things in mind. Merrick, I'm not sure if you're interested in this. Mark, it could be interesting for you as well. I'm sure maybe. Um, uh, but yeah, yeah. Let me know if you guys are interested in coordinating. I think we should think about this week.
I was too quick on the unmute there. No, I know Nat's still interested. I actually I was supposed to get on a call with him, and I saw you guys in here. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, the Journeys thing, because we've been busy, and I know you still want to get something together for like a YouTube channel to kind of walk through everything. Um, Sorry, I had my mic on mute because I got my kids here and all of that, but no, so I know we still want to figure out how to do that with you, and maybe if we could just set some time with you or Oz or someone and just go through it, and then we can edit the video and stuff, and then put a final cut up. But I know he still wants to do something like that for sure.
For sure, for sure. I'll get in touch with Nat too. There may be, we had some discussion around the Figma doc for some time as well. So, and we, like I said, we don't have to be concrete in that. We can, merge it with some other, something that's possible and a little bit more practical right away for outward facing content. And I spoke to a little bit in the session before, but maybe we can get back on it and have some help. So. So yeah, I'll reach out to yourself and Nat around this probably today sometime to coordinate sometime this week, if possible. I know you guys are busy, so hopefully we can get something done. But
yeah, no, man, that'd be awesome. I mean, I'm still nervous myself to like edit anything in there because I don't want to like edit something in the wrong format or wrong way and then look stupid. So I'm just like, I've been kind of like waiting. I've been keeping it still, and I'm just like, I'm gonna hold off a little bit longer.
No, it's fine. I know there's a lot of we talk about a lot in here, and but yeah, it's yeah. I think one of the ways you can rest assured and uh, a nice contribution that isn't too off base is the bridge work, right? Like you're actually perfect in the sense of like finding language that makes sense to everybody as opposed to just us, right? You're important to even framing the things in a way that isn't too complicated, right? Because we want something that's robust, but we don't want something that feels complicated when people come up on it on the first time, right? So you're a good barometer for that, right? In that way, and it's kind of a priceless way of contributing, right? It's one of the things that I warned Hero about, right? I was, some months ago now, I was like, you're really good at paraphrasing this away from some of this more less digestible language, but let's see if you keep it in 3 months or what have you, right? And yeah, I think Hero's still pretty good at it, but yeah, we could always use more of it, and it's easier the less familiar you are with some of the words, so to speak. But all of it, obviously, there's still the learning curve is obviously a valid concern to have, right? But it's you're more than welcome to help us in this way, and yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. So I'll reach out to you guys, and we can see where that goes. But yeah, something that I had thought of as I was speaking to Journeys a little bit. But yeah, thank you kindly, y'all, for the time today. Juliet, how does it feel? I know maybe a lone wolf on the women's clan side to coordinate some of this stuff. I know you've already been doing a lot of that though, right? So I don't know how to. I know it's not right away either. I think Hero, right? We still want to get a diagram for Journeys, one pager done. So as soon as that's done, we can get it into active issues, And I mean, let me know if you want my help on any of that, Hero, Juliet. I know you guys did it already for code of conduct. I've tried to do some due diligence with the one pager. The spec may help as well if for the things that are still relevant to House's points. Um, but yeah, let me know if you guys are interested in touching on that, some of that now or soon.
So just a question. Is the one pager like 90% there? Or is it like 70% or 95%? Can I get an idea?
I think it's about 90% there, depending on you guys' feedback to what it looks like now.
Okay.
Uh, and I think the diagram, could be a nice way to wrap it up. But yeah, I mean, obviously, once it gets out to other folks, right, it's still being iterated on. But for
Yeah.
this particular stage, yeah, yeah.
I think even if we get a picture out with the current thing as it evolves, I can imagine like in a month it might look slightly different, but it's probably sufficient to serve what we're doing now as a conversation around it. If so, then I would probably say what I could help with is that perhaps I'll take a read based on the current format or current status, and then I'll probably draft something up, and then I'll have a conversation, a community call to see what people think, or just have well, I'm just trying to draw how we did it with Juliet last time. Essentially, I took a look and draft something up. We had a call with Juliet, and then we refined it as we do it on the call slightly, just for clarity, and Julia had some better understanding on certain things. So I think what I think how we could take that a little bit further would be, so these are the steps. So I can take a look. I'll draw something up, and I'll arrange a call with you to have to cross check that it's fairly accurate, and then maybe you can help add your understanding to it, and maybe it will iterate the diagram on the call on the go. So by the end of the call between us, we should have a decent diagram to put out to the community as an active issue. Or we can, at that point, take take the status of diagram to the community call, and then ask people for their feedback on the community call before we launch it into active issue. But either way, whether after our call we take it to community call or we just post it on active issue, I think it probably, yeah, I think either way will work. But I think what's important, what drawing from the previous experience is to, yeah, I think it's much more productive and efficient if we have a call together.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Uh, I'm all for that. And if Juliet is there with us in the process of making the diagram, it's even more, it's even better in the sense that in that way it makes sense that it goes into the active issues even sooner. Because we already have a female wolf looking at it. But Juliet, I see your
Yeah, that sounds good. Hero Gamer and I had a good collaboration previously. It worked really well, so I highly recommend that. Also, I'm in the process of trying to schedule a workshop with the Women's Clan so we can go over these issues, and probably something you and I should talk about too. But yeah, that's really what I want to get going and have that workshop with Women's Clan so we can go through the different active issues, have some sense making about that, as well as any turtle wharf and bear or other protocol issues. So yeah, that's like my number one thing. And then if this is done, we can have some journey sense making too. So
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I know we have a few issues or a couple issues besides journeys for folks to sink their teeth into, and as soon as you guys feel like it's you know um, sufficient, right, in terms of dialogue that's been engendered through the active issues. It would be, I think, just simple communications, however possible, to folks like Hero or other folks in the men's clans, letting us know that it's okay for it to start up those same issues for the men's clan side, right? And then there can be some of that one foot after the other kind of flow going on for the respective issues. Even if I even think it makes sense, even if it's if one issue gets done before the other, to pass that to the men, right? It will still allow us to have that sequencing. And so, yeah, this is exciting stuff. Thank you kindly for all that coordination. I know it's no joke, Juliet. So thank you kindly. It's much appreciated. Very fundamental to getting any of these flows initiated. Hence the Wolf Clan, right? So thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. So yeah, thank you kindly, Hero, as well. Like I said, we can make that as soon as possible as well, Hero. If you guys want to get together sometime soon this week, in terms of some of my input on the diagram. Although, I don't remember having so much input on the first one, and I remember looking at it by the time I hit active issues and feeling good about it. Maybe I had some brief, I saw it briefly in discussion before, or in the chat, you guys were sharing it around, and I had looked at it, but didn't have too much to say because you guys had thought about it so thoroughly. And so maybe the same is true, but I can't wait to look at it along with you guys as soon as it's possible. And yeah.
What about if we went through it Friday, 1 p.m. EST?
Friday. Let me see.
I don't know how Julia feels about that, but that's the time when we used to meet up to discuss stuff like this.
Okay.
Works for me, Hero.
That's the first, right? Yeah, I think I'm okay on that day as well, 1 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, I think I'm good on that day as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it then. But yeah, yeah, and for any of these other issues as well, the oral code of conduct and things like this, I think it's a little less complete than the journeys one pager, and obviously a whole lot less complete than the conflict resolution that you guys already got done. But maybe the conflict resolution piece is a point to start, or I'm not sure, because some of those, the oral constitution is a maybe one of the best starting places. But maybe I'll just throw that to the table for you guys if we want to sequence this in any particular order, or just sequence it based on what is already completed, more completed. We'd be able to use active issues right away, I think, for what you guys have done for the code of the conflict resolution. But then I can see how a lot of that may be dependent on things that would be really good to understand beforehand, right? With the code of conduct, oral, this collective back and forth for the code of conduct and iterating on it. Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about some of that. But yeah, I was just thinking of making use of active issues as soon as possible as well, getting folks familiar with this. Maybe it doesn't matter which issue comes first, as long as folks are getting comfortable with the consensus flow and the clan flow being together. But yeah, I'll just throw that on the floor. It's not, none of this is journeys related anymore, but it's nice to have you guys all here. and yeah, we can get back to journeys if somebody's mind.
About the oral constitution, was last Friday an oral recital, or is that not a recital?
No. I think the majority of that meeting was Tomas showing us introduction to thesis of some of his PhD work, which is more relevant to the other half of governance lab work, which is more directly connected to those native efforts, right, and on the ground, and so it's related to some of these particular concepts in the Ganara Goa, or what you might hear in a Great Law recital. But maybe the next time we get together, it will never be a recital in terms of these get-togethers in the way that a formal recital is. It can be, though, like a summarizing of the history of the formation of the League of Peace and similar things to this. Some nuances of the concepts when asked about them, and things like this. But the importance of the recital, right? Some what we heard in the first meeting on one of those Fridays about some of the collective verification that is possible and accountability. So I think this is how to look forward to some of those sessions. And apologies for any confusion that may have happened with the last call in the topic at hand. But I think some of what we, to your point of oral code of conduct, if you're looking for some type of point of reference, I would point a few sessions back where we were in a call like this, I think probably on a Tuesday, and we were, kind of going over what the substance of that oral constitution could look like, and kind of went over the importance of avoiding some of the terms of service-y like language and getting into some of the more, more mission statement-like understandings of why folks are coming together, and iterating on this. Is why I say it's a little less done. I had some iterations that I felt were safe, but I think folks can have their own additions to it. I think we had some good contributions from yourself, Hero, Juliet, other folks that were with us around the importance of how NFTs might come into the fray there. As part of the symbolism that is read orally, right, with the oral being what is legal. So that's some powerful stuff there I can't wait to get into, and a few things that I think need to be added to it relate to some of the things that we discussed in that session. But if you remember, there was I think 4 phrases that I had gotten together that could be, at least lend themselves to the creation of our own symbolism, right? That could then be read orally, and be connected to respective interpretations of why we're coming together. But yeah, that's something to not forget about, right? In terms of collective feedback on that particular document. It's a fairly, I think, deep thing to get into as well in terms of what the substance of our code of conduct can start to look like, especially an oral code of conduct. So yeah, maybe that's something that we look forward to for tomorrow. But yeah, it's again one of these other exciting issues that can be introduced into the active issues. I'd say that's about 70% done in terms of a cohesive proposal, or especially considering feedback, because I think that may have been a session where we had some good feedback from some of the folks with us, but as it comes to especially the substance part, the end of it, we could use maybe some iterations on this, so it's not just my voice in what is being thought of as makes up the substance of the oral code of conduct. But yeah, it's going to be tricky because I think we're going to have to think in symbolism. I think of in like broad phrases or things like this that can cut across core concepts that are not too far loosely related to the cosmologies that we're coming to learn. And so I don't know if you were with us, Merrick, but I've used that phrase, truth, peace, power, and righteousness as guardrails, right? Because I know that it's connected directly to the 4 sacred ceremonies in the cosmology. But it also relates to a lot of what we're doing, right? Intrinsic motivation is not just a big part of our system design, but it can be spoken to in terms of, as a participant in this system, big intrinsic motivation of mine are these indigenous modes, not unlike a lot of us here. But also, there may be folks here extremely excited about just general community building and healthy community building, distributed power, excited for innovation, that is sustainable ecologically. These type of things can be, even simpler things, right, as it relates to family or things like this, can be a big part of what gets wrapped up into this general understanding of how important intrinsic motivation is to our clan design and all of this. But also some of the other things that are related to the 4 sacred ceremonies, things like commons, right, which is a big part of our system design, and hopefully something we could all speak to in different ways. Other things in there are obviously matrilineal power, right? And then balance, and all of these things are dependent on each other, one after another. And so these are the guardrails that I use for what can make up some of the substance of our Constitution, and it feels safe that it's it still speaks to some of the functional aspects of the Guyana Rasa Goa, which for the folks who weren't here with us last time, I spoke a little bit to how beautiful it is that we can make that functional as opposed to just a mentioning in the code of conduct. Because once it's functional, then it can actually be referenced to in consensus as a point of law in consensus, right, as opposed to opinion. And this is something that is already scaled across nations and sustained for millennia. And so it's a hell of a precedent to be able to point to as we learn it collectively more and more. And it's the epitome of scalability. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to potentially leave out a lot of what might be a rule setting or terms of service like points, because it's encapsulated for sure up there, something that was designed for nations, right? And so to have all of these things kind of recursive to each other is a beautiful thing and something to keep in mind when we try to think in symbolism for our own oral constitution, which I think beyond some of the things that I've already started to mention in some of those core concepts, we can get more into the context of Web3, right? Which is the only thing that would distinguish our, our context of oral recitation from that native context of oral recitation of the cosmologies, right? We're kind of building what might be some guidelines for a 201 friendly Web3 innovation ecosystem, right? And so, this is pretty much the context of the oral constitution and the substance that we can think of it in, the context that we can think of it in. But I hope all that makes sense, Hiro. I'd encourage you guys all to try to add something to that document. For example, Haas's language, right? Like things that have popped up in these discussions very organically, right? I think this is what can start to make up our own symbolism, right? Or make up how our symbolism is read, is to be able to codify through the NFTs, which is a symbolism, codify these things that we that come up orally, as have come up orally already, right? Because we can't, like, the reason why I say we have to think in symbolism is because it really makes no sense to base an oral constitution off of a fully fleshed out written constitution. But it makes all the sense in the world to build in our oral dialogues into our own symbolism, right? Oral dialogues that have thought seriously about these native cosmologies, about these protocols for organization with distributed power, bottom up, right? Those conversations can start to make up our symbolism. And as it gets more in the realm of Web3 innovation, which is our whole distinction in our oral recitations, right, from that native context, Haas's language around the technology assisting organic processes as opposed to controlling them or directing them, right? Symbolism for this in some way could be beautiful, and being able to speak to that orally in a reciprocal process where other folks can speak to it as well would be a beautiful start to our own oral recitations in a Web3 innovation context, right? And, folks, Haas may speak to the social aspects to this, right? Another person may speak to the ecological aspects of this, right? In that oral recitation when it comes to technology that assists as opposed to controls or directs, right? And so, so this is the type of iterations that I think, folks can make when looking at that, what we have so far for that. Let me see, make sure that I have it in the chat for you guys who haven't seen it already. And yeah. Yeah, at the very end of that, you'll see what I'm talking about. Talk about the NFT symbolism a little bit in the establishing of Advocates Commons. And so I think this is a reference to some of that discussion we had. Hiro and Juliet, I believe, were there for sure. I would encourage folks to think about, okay, how says things like this? I've said things like this in terms of, maybe there's some language folks remember from Juliet. There's some language folks remember from Hiro. I know I could think of some things, but maybe you guys can think of some things that I would miss. And this can start to make up, an iterative list of our own symbolism or wampums that we can speak to in these sessions.
Sorry, I went to the bathroom. What topic are we on?
The code of conduct. I just shared the code of conduct proposal thing, the advocates
Cool.
oral code of conduct protocol.
Cool.
I just shared that again. And I think Haas, yourself, Juliet, had looked at it, and I had came in and gave some insight into what certain goings on were in the document. But then I also got into exactly what I meant by content and symbolism additions. And yeah, I went through a little bit of what I told you already, Hero, you guys then, and tried to give an example of how folks can iterate themselves on this. But yeah, maybe we use the actual active issue sessions as councils as a means of iterating on the content and symbolism as well. Maybe we do it real time and live, right? Yeah, I think potentially it could come out of the clan sessions, right? Folks iterating on this. And then when we come together, it would almost be like like one of our first oral code of conduct recitals. And so that'll be an important first. But yeah. It's exciting stuff. Thank you, Connie, for letting me get so off the topic of journeys here, but it's nice to have you guys all here to speak to some of these things. But yeah, I'll leave the floor open. I'll have a hard stop pretty soon here at 3 for sure, but we can stop way before that as well if folks are okay with it. All right. Okay. I think we're good for the day. Thank you kindly, y'all. Thank you kindly for the recording. If it got pulled off somehow, it's always miraculous. Pretty much a miracle from my perspective. I don't know how you guys do all that OBS stuff. But thank you kindly. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon, I guess.
Yeah,
And
see you
sorry, well, I
tomorrow.
guess
Thank
Is
you.
yeah. And sorry, Meg, I know we forgot the opening and closing today. It's horrible. But must be the heat. I don't know.
Yeah, that heat'll do it.
All right.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one, y'all.
See
Thank
you
you kindly.
tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll see you tomorrow. All right.
Sounds good. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.